Special counsel Jack Smith is urging the Supreme Court to reject former President Donald Trump's effort to delay his criminal trial for trying to overturn the 2020 election results. The special counsel filed his response last night, 6 days ahead of the deadline issued by the High Court. Smith stated that Trump's bid to put on hold an appeals court ruling that rejected his immunity claim fails to meet the necessary requirements for the Supreme Court to intervene. Joining us now, NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissman. Andrew, let's start there. There's a lot going on today, even this morning in court. But in this case, in terms of immunity, is the issue that if this is delayed, it goes beyond the election and therefore the results are moot? Or what is Jack Smith's warning at this point to the courts?
Sure. So this is the case that involves the D.C. federal case involving January 6th and related acts. And basically, the argument that Donald Trump has made and lost at the trial level and in the Court of Appeals is that he should be immune from criminal prosecution, that a president should be able to, as one of the appellate judges said, actually order SEAL Team 6 to kill people, and he cannot be prosecuted unless he's immunized. And that obviously has been rejected. And Jack Smith in his paper says, in quite sort of, I think, appropriately apocalyptic terms, says the crimes charged here strike at the heart of our democracy, and says that if there's anything to this idea of absolute immunity, it would not apply in the case where you're seeking, and I'm going to quote, where the charges are where the president sought to overturn an election and thwart the peaceful transfer of power to his successor. He says that's the last place to recognize a novel form of absolute immunity. It's really quite shocking that this claim is even being made.
Right.
And finally, Jack Smith points out that if you do not sort of deny this now or hear it on an extremely expedited basis, you're going to thwart the public's right to a speedy and fair trial. So it's a very powerful brief. I think, by the way, one technical thing is I think the reason that he got his brief in today is that the court typically hears these kinds of things internally on Fridays. So by getting these papers in last night, I think that Jack Smith is hoping that the court will decide what it wants to do this Friday. So we could be hearing something very soon from the court.
And also we'll be hearing possibly from Judge Engoron on Friday. So that could be a busy day. That's tomorrow. Given the gravity of what Jack Smith is talking about in this brief, do you expect the Supreme Court to respond quickly?
Yes, absolutely. It's not clear. The thing that no one really knows is whether they're going to take it and decide it on an expedited basis, which could have the effect of obviously delaying the trial in the district court, which has been on hold for basically almost up to 3 months so far because of these appeals, or whether the other option is to just say, you know what, this is such a frivolous argument, it doesn't meet the legal standards for a stay, and we're not going to hear it, in which case we could be hearing that Judge Chutkan has given the green light to go forward. Now, that's going to involve pretrial motions, et cetera, but that would mean that certainly by the end of May, beginning of June, she could have a trial. But I think that's about the earliest that we could expect that federal trial to go forward.
So, Andrew, we're not only waiting on Judge Engoron's decision, which could come tomorrow, according to some reports, but there's a hearing today, this morning. Remember Stormy Daniels, the hush money case. Can you give us a sense of the status of that? Could that be the one that actually we see some sort of outcome the quickest to?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of balls in the air. So we just talked about the federal trial and when that's going to get back on track. There's a hearing in the Georgia case today. And then, Mika, as you said, there are two things going on in New York. There's a criminal case that's having a hearing today, and we're waiting for Judge Engoron in the civil fraud case. So former President Trump is certainly has a lot of legal issues that he's been wrestling with. I do expect, with respect to the hearing today, with respect to the criminal case, the Manhattan State Court criminal case, which is the so-called hush money case, or as Alvin Bragg terms it, an election fraud case, because remember, that was hush money to keep information from the public in advance of the 2016 election. I do expect that we're going to hear about a trial date today. There is at least scheduled a March 25th trial date. The judge in that case, the state case, has been trying to make sure that that state case doesn't interfere with the Judge Chutkan federal case. In other words, he has signaled that he is willing to go second, that he's not going to schedule in a way that thwarts her trial. But because that federal case is now on hold with no idea of when it's going to go forward, I do think that there's a very, very strong chance that there will be a schedule from the judge today so that we could end up with that case being the first to go. Remember, by the way, Mika, that is the first case that was indicted. So it would be, in some ways, quite fair for that to be the first case that goes to trial. And remember, the other is that this is a case that is not subject to a federal pardon, meaning that if Donald Trump were to win the presidency again, he could not get rid of this conviction if he is convicted.
Wow, a lot going on today. We'll be covering it all live right here on MSNBC. NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissman, thank you as always.